All right, so I think today we have a very interesting panel. I have Parag with me, founder of Saankhya, EVP of Semiconductors at Tejas now, which is acquired by Tejas. And I have Satya from the VLSI Society, the president. So if you look at AI, right, the beating heart of AI is the semiconductor, is the chip, right? And that's why we see Nvidia today at $4 trillion valuation. TSMC has crossed the $1 trillion valuation. And there are a lot of misconceptions of what semiconductors in India is all about. So I'd like to give both of you gentlemen an opportunity to say where we are at in semiconductors and where are we playing at?
I think there's a lot of buzz about semiconductor manufacturing. I think we need to be able to make a lot of these PLI schemes and the DLI schemes that MIT has come up is for manufacturing. The manufacturing ecosystem in India is very nascent, whereas there's another class of semiconductors called Fabless design, which is where we represent mostly. So these are companies that actually build chips. For example, Nvidia and Qualcomm and these guys are all Fabless semiconductor companies. For the last 35 years, I think 40 years since TI first set up its design center in 1984 or 85, practically every chip that's built in the world has a Bangalore hand in it. Right? It's just like the colonial war, right? We always fought for the British and got a few Victoria Crosses. So the same thing happens. Most of the times, we build the chips, but the credit goes to MNCs. So the design ecosystem is fairly robust, very well developed. But there are a lot of services companies. But in the last 15, 16 years, companies such as ours that eventually got acquired built some very sophisticated fabless companies, semiconductors. Some of the chips that we built also are at par with some of the best in the world. Some of these are actually being deployed. So in that sense, we are there, but this industry is less of hype, right? A lot of people who work behind the scenes make a lot of things work. So a lot of people in the front, in the media, probably don't know about a lot of stuff that happens in the semiconductor industry as such.
So Parag, what you're saying is the headlines get dominated by the fabs, but design-wise, we're already there in some sense.
Yes.
But then when we move beyond, right? So from a branding aspect,
yeah.
There was a Saankhya, you've got acquired by Tejas. But why don't we see like the Qualcomm, those kind of brands coming out of India? Is that journey there? Because on the software side, we've seen it, right? Software product is coming out of India. Do we see that journey on semiconductors?
It happens. See, when we started in 2007, semiconductors was not in fashion, right? People literally laughed at us. People practically laughed. You would expect a semiconductor company based in Bangalore to be funded by all these, fancy MBA types and all the new high-tech entrepreneurs. But we got funded by angels from villages and from, I fondly call them the NH4 angels. NH4 is a road connecting Bangalore to Pune. Most of my investors came in from villages around that road. So the problem is most of the VC ecosystem or the capital ecosystem actually favors the flavor of the season, right? So semiconductors is not flavors of the season. So we don't have a robust patient capital. We didn't have leadership around that time, but now I think we have a very strong leadership. The time is ripe. And also the fact that a lot of youngsters are now seeing the fact that there is real stuff to be made, and of course there's a lot of money to be made, not just selling stuff on the internet. We have things more than that. So I think that's one of the reasons why it didn't happen, but it will happen now.
Satya, I'd like to come to you, right, in terms of what Parag was mentioning, right, that we have the skill set. We are doing this. But how do we sort of accelerate this further and sort of really be a dominant player in this? No?
Yeah. So let me do some context setting, right? Why we are talking about the semiconductors in an AI summit, right? If you look today, the advent of AI and some of the basically people who are working in the foundation model and all those things, the foundation technology for AI, whatever we are using today, was developed 30 years back, okay? An algorithm called backpropagation, which is the heart of every algorithm basically in AI, was developed 30 years back. Fortunately, I was doing my PhD at that time in about 88, 89 time frame, and I spent 1 year working on this thing. What is the difference between that and today? is basically power of the semiconductors and power of the compute and memory. If many of you might have seen a picture of basically IBM 5 megabyte basically drive being loaded on the truck, right? And today on a small basically SD card, we can have a terabyte of memory. So both the combination of basically compute power, which the semiconductors have given, and the memory power, which basically again driven by semiconductor, has given the power to the AI today. Otherwise, we will be solving the toy problem just like what during my PhD we were solving a toy problem, recognizing a letter and things like that, right? We'll be still solving that. So the whole thing is that today we can run multi-billion parameter models, right? We were running about 500 parameter models at that time, right? So that's the difference which has happened, and that can be seen in the market also, right? Today, basically, what is the largest company in the world today? Can somebody tell?
Anyone in the audience?
Largest company in the world in any sector. What is the largest company in the world? Nvidia. What is the market valuation?
4 trillion.
It's basically equal to India GDP, right? So Nvidia's market valuation is equal to India GDP today. And why Nvidia basically has gone 50x in last basically 5 years is primarily because semiconductor is essential to AI. Now where we are in India, coming to that point, right? As Parag said, right? Most of our design capabilities are basically just like software design services. We are doing the semiconductor design services for the large MNCs, right? That's where our most of the talent lies, right? Some of us came out, just like Parag. I have basically had 3 successful semiconductor company. One which we started in 2003 and got basically acquired in 2007 when he was starting. That was probably India's largest fabless company in terms of the acquisition value, right? So that talent is there, but very few of basically people coming out of the MNC and basically starting this thing. Correct. Now, with the new push from the government has this basically design link incentive scheme, which is targeted to create basically fabless company. Because of that, multiple basically companies are coming out. Some of you might have read recently, Netra Semi got $10 million of basically VC investment. So I think Parag, when he started the VC, or when we started in 2003, the VC ecosystem in India was not there. But today, I think the situation is reversed because of all the hype around AI, semiconductor. Today, more VCs and less basically really good ideas in front of them to take up, right?
The capital is in excess.
I will not say capital, but the interest is in excess. They are still small players. They are not basically people who will spend 20, 30, 40 million dollars. But the interest, like every week I get called, tell me some interesting fabless companies, right? So I think it's getting into balance. But the problem is that still we are talking about the small ticket sizes, right? 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. If we have to basically make the semiconductors of the class of things which can be used either in the edge AI or data center AI, right? We have to basically have the mechanism to invest basically in upward of 25 million, 50 million type of.
So those check numbers need to have
check numbers like you get, if you are big basket, you get a check size of basically 50 million, $100 million. We need to replicate the same thing basically in the semiconductor side. I think that is what is required, right? And we'll talk about what requires, the technology requires to do that and the subsequent questions, right?
So, Satya, Parag, what I want to discuss is, take it a little technical now, like the architecture change, right? CPU to GPU, right? Well, you know, that's the Nvidia advantage, right? Intel was in the CPU world, Nvidia entered the GPU world. Do we see new architectures like LPUs, TPUs, and does India have an opportunity to play there in this transition in semiconductors?
Well, actually, yeah, when there's a gold rush, right? I mean, AI is some sort of a gold rush. The guy who sells shovels will make the most money. That's Nvidia for you. So the backstory of Nvidia is, I mean, the GPU was never originally designed for AI. Everybody, this is all post facto, right? People look back. If you look back, I think in 2011 or 2012, one of the OpenAI co-founders, I don't know who he is, I think there's a Russian name, he actually, was a PhD research assistant, he said, why not try the GPU? Because like Satya said, the under the hood, basically it is a perceptron. The perceptron was first invented not by a computer engineer, but a psychologist in 1958, right? So the backpropagation algorithm, it got stuck in the 60s, and then the backpropagation came in late 70s and the 80s. That actually changed the rest of it. So you had to design custom hardware, which is you have to tape out chips. So researchers can't tape out chips, right? If you're working on, say, the best thing you can do, if you're working on AI foundational model, fundamentally under the hood is you work on convex optimization. That's the word, right? Estimation theory. Those are the things. If you want to do that, you have to build a chip. So I said, why not try something on a GPU, which has got lot of horsepower? And that's how the GPU architecture evolved, and then it became, then suddenly everybody thought, oh, now, this is meant for AI.
Yeah.
This is all looking back.
From video games to AI.
It is always like that, right? From
Yeah.
video games to, mining coins to AI. And then it really took off. So architecturally, the GPU is very inefficient. I believe that strongly, right? From a power consumption perspective. If we continue on the same trajectory that we are going today, you will not have global warming, you will have global heating. I believe a lot of people in the US also are already now investing in nuclear reactors to be able to even fusion and all of that to power these data centers. They are simply power hoggers, right? There are far more efficient ways to do it, but the problem with efficiency is that you have to be backward compatible. Now, Intel ruled for 40, 50 years with a really bad architecture, which was designed in the early 70s. Right. But that is because once the software applications start to develop, to have a backward compatibility with that becomes a challenge. And the incumbent actually keeps building, the moat year after year. So there is a lot of attempts. We have a lot of patents around it. I myself had a patent in 2013 on reducing power consumption in signal processors, digital signal processors or this, right? So the fundamental thing is, as simple as what's called quantization. How do you represent certain number of bits, in a computer to do a certain computation? That itself will give you a lot of power computation. But now the problem is, if I come up with a new architecture, which is what a lot of startups are trying, and including some in India as well, the problem is who will port these models, right? That becomes a huge challenge. And that's where all the $100 million or $200 million get wasted. So apart from the application layer and the RAGs and also the foundational model, there's a third aspect of AI which actually gets missed out completely from the semiconductors as well, but tied very close to the semiconductors, which is the AI infrastructure software or AI DevOps, where they are much like frameworks or compilers that take your cool Python code or the foundational model that Ganesh or somebody are building onto the hardware or lower it onto the hardware. That becomes a challenge. So that piece of software becomes very crucial, so that you have the software that above that doesn't change when I introduce a new architecture in. So from the GPU, I believe on the data center there will be more and more innovation around power, on representation, as fundamental as representation of basic numbering system. How do you actually reduce the amount of memory required for a 300 billion parameter model and stuff like that. But also, while that's at the central AI or the data center, there's also the edge AI, right? While Nvidia sells chips for, the high-end chips sell for about $20,000, $30,000. If we have to bring this at scale, we need to bring it to feature phones. The feature phones today sell in India at 1,100 rupees. Somebody said that in the morning, right? You said that. Keypad phone, or I think Amitabh said that.
Yeah, the touchpads are cheap.
The touchpads. So these are the feature phones. Now, if we have to bring stuff to those guys, those chips sell at $3 or $4. So there is a lot of innovation that we can bring in to the table to attack those markets. And also, we'll have to fundamentally relook at the way we are looking at these large models, right? Large models are, in some sense, it's more about, swag value. And there is much simpler ways of doing things, I believe. And in fact, we are doing that in 6G and stuff like that, to be able to do on a far lesser compute footprint, and much less memory footprints.
So Satya, Parag laid out opportunities, right? Edge AI infrastructure, quantization. How does the talent in India measure up for these challenges, right? Because this is the opportunities where we leapfrog.
Yeah. So let me give some few comments about the architectural aspect of the AI, right? See, GPU is actually not an architecture. GPU is just a name, right? The actual architecture, we call it SIMD, right? Single instruction, multiple data. When you give one command to basically 1,000 people sitting in the room, everybody doing the same thing and basically this thing, right? That's the basic architecture. The problem in the AI is, as you people working in the software side also will know that basically, ultimately the core operation is a matrix vector multiplication technically, right? And the weight matrix and basically any AI applications are very sparse. Like if it is a 1 lakh entries in the matrix, only basically less than 10,000 will be populated, rest of them are zero. World has not found an efficient way to basically deal with it, right? A sparse matrix, so that means we do all the multiplication, even if it's zero, we end up doing multiplication. And that's basically one of the reasons for large power consumption. Okay. So what the opportunity is that basically for India to bring out the architectures which are not basically just following this brute force method of basically multiplying everything basically without thinking what are you multiplying, right? So if we can basically leapfrog on that architecture, that can give basically, see, in AI world, if you do 20% improvement, it will not mean anything. You have to do an order of magnitude improvement to get basically power and all of this thing into picture. So what are the India opportunities? Come up with the architectures which are beyond basically this brute force matrix vector multiplication way. It worked because we wanted something quickly out on this thing. Nvidia cashed on it, and then basically it happened, right? But that's not the right way, right? We are doing at least 100x more computation than what we are supposed to do, right? So we need to find the architectures which can do that. Second thing which basically India opportunity with the thing is that, right? So partly it will come from the architecture, partly it will come from the technology, right? So today in the chip world, we are basically these large AI chips are reaching beyond the size which basically can be built, what we call the reticle. They are going beyond reticle size. So we have to do vertical stacking. So 3D from a technology point of view is the future of AI. Nobody in the world has a basically completely vetted out 3D packaging technology in the world today. So that's the opportunity for India because nobody is there yet, right? It is not basically as expensive as building a 2 nanometer node or basically 3 nanometer node fab, right? Which will take $20 billion plus, right? In about $500 million to $1 billion, we can do basically cutting edge research in 3D packaging, which will help us in making the complex chips and bring the power down also, right? So that is a very solid opportunity sitting in front of it. We don't have basically VC ecosystem which will fund $200 million basically startup and all those things. So we have to find out the sweet spot. So I will very strongly say either look at basically newer architectures which are not brute force, and secondly is look at the 3D packaging thing which can basically help all the chips from the edge AI to basically data center AI. So these are two opportunities, and we have the right talent to do this thing, right? But we have to focus. See, I've been listening, not all the discussion, but we are always thinking about the things which have already happened. Yeah. Okay, whether it's AI or anything, right? What are we thinking that basically what is going to come up next? Okay, so next is going to be 3D ICs. Next is going to be the newer architectures which can solve the brute force problem. So rather than trying to implement a basically GPU-based architecture today, GPU is done. Even the Nvidia will move out of the GPU within 5 years, right? Now, we have to think what is after GPU, then only we can catch up, right? If we think only GPU, we are never going to catch up, right?
We're still sort of in the past paradigm.
So by the time we reach GPU, they would have basically gone ahead, right? So we have to think what is after GPU now.
Right.
In my opinion, GPU's life is coming to an end very soon. Like within 5 to 7 years, all the basically AI will move to newer architecture. Now we have to think about what that new architecture is going to be. We have good brains there, government support is good, but we are just thinking too little, too small. We are not thinking big and forward looking, right?
Right.
The government also is buying 20,000 GPU is not going to solve the problem, right? Coming up with the basically next architecture beyond GPU is going to solve problem, right? That's where we have to basically focus on even building a GPU chip, because by the time we build a GPU chip, it will take 6-7 years.
Yeah.
The world would have moved to some new architecture, right? So rather than replicating GPU, we have to go and think about something new.
So Satya, you're saying we skate to where the puck is instead of playing the game where it is
I
today.
mean, GPU is done. And by the time we do the GPU, these guys would have gone basically 10 years ahead, right? So basically, we are not going to catch up in this game like just a follower type of the approach, right?
Parag, you wanted to add something?
No, I agree with him, right? So see, at Saankhya, we had built some kind of AI in our chip in 2006, but we didn't call it that. We called it LMS, least mean square. That doesn't sound very catchy, to
That
people.
doesn't get the marketing
That doesn't get the
excited.
marketing value, right? So I think it's a old wine in a new bottle, and the patient capital and some of these things do. And he talked about big basket. I just want to take out the reason big basket. No, there are plenty like that. Flipkarts and all the other guys, the cab aggregator guys, and all of them. See, VCs in India actually like cash flow businesses. Even if you have a negative cash flow, which means you're making a loss, but you're getting a revenue, it's okay. So in a semiconductor company, you have to spend 7-8 years before you get a single penny of revenue, single paisa of revenue into it.
It's the R&D cycle.
It's the R&D cycle. So it's a long gestation period, right? So until that time, you're just burning money. And nobody in India, nobody, mind you, in India, including the government, has the jigger to actually go and do that.
I like that, jigger.
Yeah, you need the jigger.
I have a different opinion on this thing, right?
Okay, very quickly we're running.
Yeah, even though basically we say that hardware companies will take 7 years to basically earn the first thing, right?
Right, the first paisa.
But basically all these e-commerce type of the companies
Okay.
never make money. Right?
Yeah, no, I'm saying-
they never make money, right?
Yeah, so
So we may say have a revenue, but it's a negative revenue,
It's a
right? What am I
negative
going
cash
to
flow.
do with the negative
No, that's what I'm
revenue,
saying.
right?
Negative cash flows, but even if it is negative.
Yeah, but what am I going to do
Something's
with the
coming in the
revenue?
bank.
Yeah. So,
Whatever I'm going to do revenue
I-
when I'm burning basically thousands of crore every year of the negative revenue.
Yeah.
We are not doing this.
And that's where that bold vision comes in, right?
So
Put the
see-
money
see,
into R&D.
One thing basically, fundamentally I saw that if I develop a chip, okay, and the chip cost is let's say $10, right? And I go to the market and say basically my VC that I'm going to sell this chip for $8. Okay, VC will show me the door. But the whole e-commerce model is built
Yeah, you're
on
buying revenue.
that basically thesis, right? So when there is a physical object, nobody accepts that you can sell it at a discounted prices, right? But it is well established practice in the e-commerce market, you sell it at a discounted price. Something costs you 100 rupees, you are always selling at 60 rupees, right? If we adopt the same model for basically the hardware, give them time to build up, right? Just like we are giving the time to build up the e-commerce companies. If it is not cost competitive, we'll sell it at 20% plus below the cost, right? That's okay.
So Satya, Parag, what I'm hearing is patience and boldness in vision. from the
Boldness in
capital side.
vision and, playing to your strengths, right? You can't play the Nvidia game to beat Nvidia there. So, I mean, the Marathas didn't fight the Mughals in the plains, right? They fought them on the mountains. So we need to find our mountains and actually get going there. And these are all 25-year, 30-year capacity building thing. This takes time. This takes really long time.
Speaking of mountains, one mountain is the fab itself, right? I know we talked a lot on design, we talked a lot on architecture, but it's still an aspiration, right? When does India go down that route? Or is that a journey we don't take at all?
No, we have to take it for strategic reasons. We have taken it. And I think the problem is everybody is expecting success or failure in a certain amount of time. A fab, I mean, TSMC today because of 2019. Until then, nobody knew about TSMC, nobody knew about ASML. Right. All these companies took 20, 25 years to get where they are, right? And it does take time. We have started the journey as we go along, and we should cut out the noise and just stay focused and continue to build capacity. It's going to lose money in the beginning, but over a period of time, I think a new ecosystem will emerge for
It's strategic and we need to
It is from a geopolitical perspective, it is important. But equally important, if not more important, is fabless. And we are not concentrating enough on it compared to, the
I think fab takes the mind share. What about you, Sat?
No, a very simple thing, right? Till 5 years back, US did not have any fabs, right? But every fab company was ready to go there as soon as they called them, right? Why? Because all of their customers, which are the fabless companies, are in the US, right? So the fabless was the attraction for TSMC, Samsung, all the big guys to go and set up their shop in last 5 years. Before that, it was not there, right? So fab will also go where the customers are. That's the lever, right? So in any business, customer is always driver, right? So fabless is the customer. Once you create a vibrant fabless ecosystem, right? Today, how many wafers do we consume in India? Maybe 5,000 wafers a year, combined everything, right? TSMC makes basically about 100,000 wafers per week. Our consumption across the India is 5,000 wafers, right? Why will basically big guys think of coming there, right? So we have to build market for them, then everybody will come. How will we build the market? We'll create the fabless. But at the same time, this is an essential technology for technology sovereignty of the country, right? So we cannot just leave it. This is like a building block, right? Like ISRO or DRDO or any of those things.
Fundamental.
So we have to build it. Even if we are behind, that's okay. But we have to still build it and keep on building it. But from the other side, we have to bring the basically fabless chips and all of those things, so that somewhere both of them merge somewhere and work on the newer architectures, not just basically follow what the rest of the world has done already.
I have one more point to add to that. I mean, just to give you a sporting analogy, right? I mean, go back to, and that's why I admire the Chinese to an extent. I mean, you have to admire them. Go back to the 80s, right? The number of gold medals that they won, or the total medal tally that they had. They put a systematic 25-year plan and see today where they are. So these are all, even in sports, in all of these things, right? It takes 20, 25 years to build the capacity. And then we need to have bipartisan agreement on a long-term issue and patience to get there. And we'll get there.
So last thing I'll say is that our vision at a country level is very reactive. It has to be proactive. We need to know that basically what type of the fab or the chips we want to have by 2030. What do we want to have by 2047? I don't see that basically very crisp vision that what do we want to be in 2047, right? It's more reactive that basically now AI is there, let me build the GPU, right? Tomorrow something else will be there, we'll build something like that. We need to set our vision long and more proactive and more bold, right? By 2047, we have to have this. Right. Maybe just 5 things, right?
And just back a few, but at least we have a vision. Yeah.
5 things. This is what we want in semiconductor. This is what we want in the technology manufacturing. This is we want in the software. This is we want in the product, right? Last thing I'll say is that basically we talked in lot STPI and all those things. Our growth of the country in technology has been based on the services, right? Even manufacturing is a service, right? We need to convert the narrative and the whole thought process of making India as a product nation by 2047. Today, less than 10% of our products are Indian products, what we consume, everything, right? We need to set up a goal that basically 50% of what we consume should be Indian products. I think that kind of the vision has to be set. If we don't make India as a product nation, we are not going to be the superpower in the world.
India as a product nation is a key point. And with that, I'd like to throw open to the audience. If there's any question, we can maybe take one and then we can, there's one out there. Yeah.
I would just like to add what Sir said. In fact,
I think let them get the mic too.
Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal also said something about that at Startup Mahakumbh, and there was a lot of furore and controversy around that, where he said that we do not need companies that do, Zomato or stuff like that. We need companies that are more innovation-driven and, they drive innovation forward. So I think just to, supplement what you said, we definitely need, companies that drive innovation and take the, world forward.
And lastly, just want to leave this with this thought. I have very strong opinions on this, right? On this general intelligence and all of that. So what do you, under the hood, yeah, just like Satya said, do you think intelligence comes from a large 300 parameter matrix inversion? Don't confuse intelligence with, with computing.
Computation.
Computation is computation. Intelligence is much more than that. So.
All right, I think, Satya, any last words?
I'll just say that basically we need to set a roadmap, basically in software, in hardware, in semiconductor, to make India as a product nation by 2047, where 50% of what we are consuming are basically Indian products. First thing basically we need to focus is basically across all the technology. We don't even have a single smartphone of Indian origin, right? I think that's the biggest opportunity sitting in front of us. We consume $40 billion of basically mobile phones, and 99.9% of that are basically foreign origins, right? It is an economic risk, it's a security risk, it's a basically affects the downward ecosystem. So we need to identify these kind of the products, and whatever it takes, right? If I can spend $10 billion on manufacturing, why can't I spend $2 billion on the smartphone, right? We need to find a way to become a product nation, and that's the final message. If we don't become a product nation, we are not going to be superpower.
All right, on a product nation note, I think thank you to both my panelists. Okay, is there a question? Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I think he's getting a mic to you.
Product nation, right? But how India would become a product nation? Let's look at what inspire India. Look at education system in India. At all, if India had to become a product nation, we need to focus on core engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. Look at what youth is aspiring for. So in India today, if you look at what is happening with mechanical, electrical kind of branches, youth is not at all aspiring to go into these core branches. As long as we are not putting focus on core engineering, how could we assume to India have a product-driven nation?
Yeah, that
My thing is
conversation will
that
take
you
us the
set
rest
up
of the
the
day,
big
actually, if
vision
you get
first,
into it.
right? You set up the big vision first, okay? And then whatever you need to do, basically do that, right? You don't think what you have here, what not. First you set up your goal and vision, right? That I have to have 50% of electronics products made in India. Then whatever is required for them down the road, up to the ground level education, you start working on that, right?
No,
There are reasons
okay,
for
his
basically
question, his question is, how do you inspire those guys sitting there to come and do it? They should be doing it, right? Well,
How do you develop that passion?
Yeah, how do you develop a passion,
It's-
right?
it's
I mean,
more about awareness,
that's a grassroots, problem that all of us have, not just us. Even in the US, they have the same problem.
once
How do
you
you stop
set up-
people? How do you stop the IIT guys from going to, finance jobs and taking banking jobs?
Yes.
We have a
have
problem.
enough people, even if some of them go to abroad and basically some of them don't take core branches. Our pool is so big, even if we basically 10% of that pool we can convert to basically people who aspire to become innovators, who aspire to take big goals, right? But for various reasons, we have not been able to create that awareness. But once you set up the big goal, then the whole ecosystem works in creating that awareness, and the students also get impacted, parents get impacted. Does parents of basically today students taking computer science know that basically the package in semiconductor industry is 5x more than the IT industry? That awareness is not there, right? We need to build that awareness. Yeah. You got 5 lakh package in software industry in average. We basically get 20 lakh package in semiconductor industry for a good BTech, right? That awareness has to be built, but for that, it has to come from the top also. You can take a bottom-up approach or top-down. I'll prefer to take a top-down approach, set a big goal, big dreams, and then percolate it down.
So marketing comes to the fore as well. I mean, you market this.
You have to market it, right?
All right, I think on that note,
Go on for the rest of the day.
yeah, but I think both the panelists are here, so feel free to reach out to them.
Thank
But
you so
thank
much.
you so much, Satya. Thank you so much, Parag.